one of the reasons why I'm really grateful that I have figured out how to study, because when I was in college, when I the hardest part I had when I was at OU, and it's funny to go back to that period of time, but when I was at OU, the hardest thing that I had was our professors would be going through slides, and I would sit in the front row, and I would just watch the slides. He's talking, and back in those days, we had micro cassette. I had a micro cassette handheld recorder. The cassette tape was like 45 minutes long. Okay. We didn't have digital. I didn't have MP3. So it was a micro cassette. MP3s just started coming out when the iPhone came out. And I was not doing too good, because what I was doing was I was trying to buy micro cassettes, and I had 5 classes. Each class is 45 minutes long. You got three classes on, one day, two on the other. So 3 and 2 equals 5. And you don't have enough cassettes to record every class every single day for 16 weeks. So what ended up happening to me was I would be overdubbing the recording. And I didn't realize at the time that, they're not going to give you a CD of the class. They're not giving you no cassette. Professor or the TA is just going through the class. He's spilling out the same old crap, and I did not record. My brain, I didn't learn at college that it takes me weeks to learn. But when you're in college, you gotta learn that shit in days, right? They go into the next chapter 4 weeks. You got an exam, 4 weeks, another exam, 4 weeks, a final exam, 4, right? 4 times 4 times 4, right? 12 weeks, or roughly 15, 16 weeks. So, 5 times 5 times 5, 5 times 3 is 15 weeks. Well, I did not know the game of studying. And you got 5 classes, and they're all on different things. And I had a job, 2 jobs, because I had no money. And I'm on Section 8, and I'm on unemployed. I would call it welfare, study. What do they call it? Work study, welfare, aka welfare. And it was a nightmare, because I'm barely able to find money to eat. I'm barely able to focus, because my stomach's growling. I'm struggling because my stomach's growling, and I have a nightmare because of the fact that I want to pass, and nobody told me how to study. My white colleagues didn't tell me. My black colleagues, they were failing themselves. so when it came down to it, this is a great video. I'm gonna add this to my channel on Pastor Tyrone. This is Pastor Tyrone the 404, and I'm doing this video right now because I'm studying for a certification at the age of 49, turning 50. I'm just talking about life lessons that I learned as it relates to studying, because these are skills that God did not. I hate to say it, you God, I'm gonna say to you, God did not teach me. And you didn't bring an individual by me to teach me. You didn't bring any person by me to teach me. You know how I learned? I learned from, I hate to say it, trial and error. And that's wrong as a black person, as a white person, as a person in general. So the lesson that I didn't learn was how you got to study a class in a path, in an organizational structure. And that's for certain people. This is what I'm about to describe is not for everybody. You got to know yourself. It came back to how I got the revelation was, we had a class at college, and it was the class, because I ended up making my first semester. I didn't do really well, and they made us take a remedial class, and I gratefully understand. I had been out of school for 9 years before I went back. I went to school, didn't do so well, got kicked out. 9 years go by, a decade goes by. I don't even know if I'm getting back in. And so, but I said, it's 9 years, man. I gotta go back to college. If I don't go back to college, I don't know where I'm gonna be at 49. Well, I'm 49 right now. At that time, I was 24, 25, almost, so 25 years ago. And I was like frustrated because of the fact that, number one, I saw the future. I said, if I don't get a degree, I may not have a job. I may never make $50,000 a year, ever. Because I got a job through my family as a union guy working at a company called CSX in Jacksonville, Florida. But that was a job that was, I hate to say it, it goes back, and this is going to be offensive to a lot of my college and non-college friends. The union it has its bad parts and its great parts, and management is the opposite of union, which has its bad parts and great parts. Both sides of this equation in companies, American companies, are what we call capitalism. And in capitalism, you versus communism, there is no union, there is no management. It's just a state. Capitalism, there's union, there's management, and then you have contractors, which are like in the middle, which is where I'm at right now. And contractors get hired for a contract. When the contract is over with, they get taken down, and they got to find a new contract. And it's unfortunate. I'm kind of in that place right now. But here's the thing: contractors get paid lots of money. I mean, we're talking lots of money per hour, per year. Union people get paid. They get paid some small pennies per year. Management gets paid buku monies per hour and per year. So management side rules in capitalism. In the communism, it's the state. The state rules. The worker doesn't have anything. He doesn't have nothing. I mean, at least with capitalism, you get a figment of imagination. You get a house, which ain't yours. You get a property taxes that could take it away at any moment. You lose your job, you lose your house, but you at least get a house if you got a job. So you got a job, you got a house. You got a job, you got a car note. You got a job, you got bills. You got ability to get credit. Losing it, you get it, you lose it all. So it goes both ways. Again, I've experienced both the low, the high, and the low. So I can give you my story at all three areas. I'm experiencing it right now as I'm making this blog. And so when I was in college, one of the hardest things for me was that I was not knowing how to study. So what I was doing was I was studying hard. I would study at the wrong times of the day when my brain's not waking up. The best time for me to study in the morning. I'm a morning person. I was studying at night. Yeah, I was studying at night. I didn't know that I need to be studying in the morning time because my body, how I'm being created, I need sleep. I need to wake up early. I need to study early. I need to go to bed early. Some people, they're late night and they can do that. I couldn't. So you know what I would do? I would study late at night. I go to the library and I study 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm a work study student. I'm working at the library, and while working at the library, guess what? I think I'm going to study. Well, remember, I'm working at the library as a work study student. So as a work study student working at the library, we close at 2 a.m. Well, guess what shift I'm on? I'm on that 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift. So about 8 hours, and we ain't getting paid nothing. We getting paid like, how much we got paid? Maybe we got paid $6.17 an hour. About $6 an hour. Whatever it was, work study at that time, it just got raised to $7.15 an hour in Oklahoma, and everybody and their mom was like, "Oh my God, you're getting $7.15 an hour." What? Back in those days, man, that's how we people like. I didn't even have a clue. Didn't have a clue that you can make $100 an hour. Didn't have a clue that you can make $50 an hour. Didn't have a clue that you can make $20 an hour. I'm making $7 an hour. And so when I'm in college, and this is a great storytelling because this is true. And as you hear me talk, you're going to realize if I'm making this up out my mind, how come all these facts are just flowing like grace? So I am, of course, a black guy going to college, and at that time, cost tuition was $15,000 minus house, just the tuition, books, and fees. $15,000 per year, going up $1,000 every year. So 15,000, 16,000, 17,000, 18,000. By the time I graduated, it was 19,000 per year. I come out of school making. I borrowed 65,000, but I got a Pell Grant, and this is Pell Grant, which is for the poorest of the dirt poor, the cheapest, the poorest guy. We're talking you got to be the mama's on drugs, mama's poor, dad's poor, you poor. Well, my mama's dead. Mom, dad's gone. I had a job that gave me a contractor role of about 50,000 a year, but I gave that up to go to Bible school, which meant I gave it up. So I gave that up. Here I am going to Bible school. I'm thinking, okay, God's gonna bless me. I'm gonna get a job. I had no cognizant clue. Like, dude, come on, man. If you go to Bible school to be a minister, you ain't getting paid ish. You know what I mean? I didn't have enough. Oh, I didn't have enough knowledge and wisdom to recognize. Okay, being a minister is like being a priest. And if you ever think about a priest, how does a priest get paid? He get paid off of what? The church. Well, what if your church has no money? Well, you ain't getting paid. And again, we're in the church, the what we call Protestant church. So that means that we're getting nothing. We're getting basically, for all intensive purposes, if your church is wealthy, you get paid. If your church ain't wealthy, you don't get paid. Got it? Got it. Well, when I went to Bible school, about 3 years earlier before I went to Oklahoma, I had left the black church that was just started off as a little tiny church. The bishop, he had a vision that one day we're going to get to 5,000 members because his former church was 30,000 members strong. So when you got a church of 30,000 that you came from, and you go plant a church in Oklahoma, or Jacksonville or Atlanta or whatever, you plant the church, you thinking you're gonna grow. You thinking you're gonna just blow up. Well, that's not true. It ain't true at all. It ain't true at all. And why is it not true? Well, there's a lot of factors that make a church grow. A lot of factors that make a church a church. A lot of factors that make a church become a worldwide super duper mega church. And I'm gonna give you some of these factors. But when I was in college, second time at Oklahoma, people looked at me at school. They're like, man, because I didn't thank you, Lord. I didn't look, and I'm grateful to say this. I knew in my mind I was 12 years older than everybody at the school. I had already, failed and made some tragic mistakes while I was at school. So when I got to school the second time, Alexa, stop music. When I got to school the second time, I was like, you know what, man? I'm gonna be straight up about my game. I ain't gonna play no more. Listen, I already went to school in 18, 19, 20, 21. I was in college like everybody else. The problem was when I was in college, during those times, I didn't know how to study then. My mama did not teach me about studying. There was no class that said, okay, Hank, this is how you supposed to study. This is how you supposed to study. So here's how I ended up, figuring this out. I ended up figuring this out after going to college and graduating barely from Oklahoma University. And then I go into working at a company called AT&T. So I'm fast forwarding between 2004 all the way into 2011, because that whole 5 years was a trial and error. I had some good classes, some bad classes, some good classes, some bad classes. And because remember, I'm a black guy, I'm at a school, and I don't have anybody like, hey Hank, this is what you need to figure out. And there's a lot of things you gotta learn when it comes to college and education or higher ed. And as a guy that wants to be a master's degree grad and a PhD, I still got another 7-8 more years of college. So what I'm discussing is not only going to be beneficial to you, but it's to me, as I got to write papers and I got to navigate having a job, paying bills, and going to school. But if my black sisters can do it, and I got tons of black brothers and black sisters getting their PhD in education strategic leadership, becoming Dr. So-and-so. And if they can do it, I can. And they got jobs, and they're doing it. I have no kids, so I have no excuses. My degrees are my kids. Those are going to be my kids. Does that make sense? So, as I was sitting there, and I was just, working for a company called AT&T, as I'm doing right now, I learned something. There's a process of learning information, and it takes time, and it's not fast. I was trying to, what I call it, cram everything into my head in one little 5 minutes and expect to remember crap. Man, I would go to exam and I would just have a brain fart. You ever heard of the term a brain fart? Yeah, a brain fart means that you read something, but then when you go look at the test, you can't remember what you read because you had what we call the brain fart, and it's the worst thing in the whole wide world. But then I didn't notice. It takes some months. It takes some time for everybody's brain to learn if they learn the process of studying. So I'm giving you this opening story. I'm right now roughly about how many minutes? 60 minutes into this blog, and I'm sorry, man. I'm recording, but every time I record, it sets the position of the microphone the backwards. I don't know why it does that. Can't fix that microphone problem. So where I can fix that crap? Sorry. Polarity, omnidirectional, cardioid, or omnidirectional. I gotta look to figure out. I like the omnidirectional method. Okay, I'm looking at my microphone settings. Sorry about the noise. So what ends up happening was I realized they give you this big old fat 1,000-page textbook and they expect you to learn it. No one told me this, and what I'm about to tell you is going to bless you, it's going to shock you, but no one that was white at college told me this truth. That's not how the smart people study. No, white people that get the A's, they don't get the A's by just reading a textbook. I didn't know that. I did not know that. They don't get the A's that way. You know how they get the A's? They get the A's by having what we call test banks. TESBANKS. Test banks. What's a test bank? A test bank. The white fraternities, they would have copies of exams. I don't know how they got them. To this day, I think the way they got them was the smartest person in the fraternity would give their copy of their exam to their frat. The fraternity would then save these classes in a big system at their fraternity. So back in those days, that we didn't have big flash drives. We had big old fat what we call hard drives. They're huge. And with these big old fat hard drives, they basically, you put stuff on it, and that was our world. The HD hard drives, not the SSD stuff. So what they would do is they would give their new fraternity brothers that joined the fraternity copies of somebody's exam from 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, last semester. And that kid would study the test bank. That kid would go in and make an A. Everybody would say, "Oh, congratulations, white guy, you got an A." This white dude is sitting there, not smarter than you, a white girl, not smarter than you, whether she's a delta or a sigma alpha epsilon. It's just a game. Well, how I figured it out was because I joined a fraternity called Delta Sigma Pi. And when I joined that fraternity called Delta Sigma Pi, I learned about this, and it blew me away because I said, this is not fair. This ain't right, man. This ain't fair. Why do we gotta study a whole textbook and read a chapter, and you're telling me I'm gonna still make a C on the test just because I did all that hard work And I did all of that. And now after I just said what I just said, you're going to say, man, that ain't right. You're telling me that these guys were cheating? And I'm going to say, yes, they were cheating. If someone is giving you a copy of an old exam because the professors do not redo their exams every semester, then, and why don't they? Professors don't care. They're doing research. This is a research university. So what they're doing is they have what's called TAs, teaching assistants. Teaching assistants are students that want to become future professors. So they don't really care either because they're trying to get to become future published professors and become a doctor themselves. This is the process of college. Everyone's trying to become a doctor, higher degree, terminal degree. You, undergraduate, you're just, I hate to say it, an undergraduate. You're not a graduate, you're under a graduate, okay? That's why they call it undergraduate. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that until probably the third year I was at OU. And I'm sitting there going, are you telling me that if I came in with that knowledge? But here's the problem. What if you don't get in those fraternities? You're screwed, right? If you don't get in those fraternities where they have copies of the same professor that's been at the university for 25, 30 years, and you got 30 years of exams to go back and study to learn or you got an exam from last semester, 2 semesters earlier. You got a good standard between, this brand new professor's been there for 3 years. You got the last 3 years of exams from that brand new professor that's been teaching that class. Supply chain management, management theory, or leadership and practice, or labor relations, labor versus union. All these standardized 120 credit hour, 3-hour courses that we all got to take, or 3 credit hour courses. So the first couple of years at OU was frustrating because I'm sitting there, we know we got to take Calc 1, Calc 2, Pre-Calc, Calc 1, Calc 2, College Algebra, Pre-Calc, Calc 1, Calc 2, so 4 math courses. And I have been out of school for 9 years, so I'm struggling because I got to go back and remember all the stuff that my high school teachers tried to teach me, but I didn't really care. Then I left for 9 years and did no math for 9 years. Then I come back to school, got to start from basically like a high school graduate. Well, I ain't graduated high school, but 9 years, 11 years earlier. That's a long time. So the frustrating part about that for you, for me, for anybody would be, well, man, Hank, what if I'm in that position right now? Well, let me tell you what you're gonna have to do. And this is the hard part. Every school, every class, even after graduating and getting a real job and you working in a real corporate America world, and they give you what we call these boot camps. They give you 5 days to get a 16-week class in 5 days. Then you got to self-study on your own, and you got to take the exam. But that don't mean crap. It just means you passed an exam. Then after you pass the exam, you have to, for 3 years, you have to take and pay $100, $200 a year, depending on the certification you got, and to keep what we call your continuing credits, which are CEs, continuing education, continuing credits, because we gotta certify. If we don't do our continuing credits, you gotta retake that same class 3 years again in 3 years. So that means you never, and it's understandable in IT, you never can ever say, well, I took that class 25 years ago, or I took that class 15 years ago. Well, you out of a job if you say something like that. So when I started realizing as I was failing and making all these tragic mistakes and frustrated as, HE double hockey sticks, I was like, what the heck can I do? What can I do? Because I don't think that's fair, man. I don't think that I have the right to quote unquote keep working my tail off to study, and then I keep failing. And so when I figured out something, I don't know if this will work for you, but this is how I figured it out. When the new textbooks come out from college, they now have everything in what's called Adobe PDFs. PDFs. And now with the techniques of a lot of colleges and a lot of websites, they have what we call test bank websites. Test bank websites. The test bank websites, what they do is they basically they do exactly what they did in college, except that you pay money for a copy of last semester's last exams, and these companies are making trillions of dollars on this. This is a huge game. I thought in my mind, I thought this is illegal, that this is impossible. You can't do this. No. People that are studying for security certifications, they are doing exactly that. So prime example, there's a website called examtopics.com. Examtopics.com. Well, guess what? I can't get on this computer. For some weird reason, ChatGPT won't let me go into that. That's weird. That is very weird. Okay, so I get well, some companies don't allow you to go into it. But on your personal computer, there's a website called examtopics.com. I don't know why. It said, my computer is saying I can't do it, but this is my business computer, so they got certain rules, and a lot of stuff I'm talking about, you cannot do this on your company computer. But examtopics.com will have copies of the quote-unquote exams, and you pay money. You pay money for it. So right now I'm studying cybersecurity, and I'm recertifying in voice. As you can see, no problem. There's no problem. Yeah. And so and with the competition of 97 people applying for a job, 150 people applying for the same job you're applying for, 70 people applying for a job. You gotta be honest, that's not bad. I mean, you got a billion people. How many workers do we have in America right now? I think 12 million. 100 people apply. If you only got 100 people applying for your job, that's a low number compared to the millions of people that could be applying for the same job. You know what I mean? So but it is harder because you gotta be able to beat those 95, those 85, those 75, those 100 folks applying for your skills, and they gotta pass the same cert you gotta pass. So what I found was the PDFs. So in the PDFs, what you have to first do, and this slapped me in the face when I saw this, because I was like, at the first time, I was a little shocked that I stumbled upon this. There is as I'm actually going through it right now, I'm studying restudying my cybersecurity exam I just passed back in April 30th. This is now June the 26th. So April 30th, May 30th, June 30th is coming up. 2 months ago, it'll be 2 months on the 30th, I passed my last cert. And I got a new cert coming up that I got to pass. Now, think about this for a moment. In order to pass that certification, I'm going to take you through the process that I had to study to pass that exam. The first thing you got to do before you start any exam is you got to get what's called the objectives, the domain, the objectives. And what that is the table of contents. Now we're getting into this point. I can put a point here and a bookmark to say we're about to talk about how we get into the studying process. This is, I would say, step one. If you can start and make your own mental map, you're going to be really, really, really good. And so the first thing you got to do is you got to know exactly the objectives of the exam. For example, we got version 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12. It don't matter. It's always a new exam. There's always a new cert. There's always a new version. So the first step is learning what we call the table of contents, or the domains. I never did that. When I was in college, I never took the time to look at the table of contents or the appendix. In every textbook, there are a table of contents and there are appendices. Appendix A, Appendix B, Appendix C, Appendix D. There's appendix. No one told me I'm supposed to read those. We would just read the chapter. And then there'll be what we call review questions, and then there'll be some test questions, and then we go to the next chapter. I did not realize that is the worst way to study and learn for me. And hopefully, if this information is a blessing to you, it might help you make A's in your classes. So, for example, my security certification, we have, and this just talks about five domains. Domain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they are what we call security concepts, is domain 1. Threats, vulnerabilities, mitigations, domain 2. This is very important because this goes into cybersecurity level 2, level 3, and level 4 certification. So by understanding your level 1, you really have a good foundation that's going to continue to grow and build and grow. So when you were studying, you really are transforming yourself into what you're studying. If you're studying for an exam and you're not becoming what the exam is teaching you, then you're failing. You're not going to pass. If you're only studying just to get the actual test, you failed. You failed before you began, because the way they write these exams, you just can't cram. You can't study and say, well, I'm going to study the night before and pass. You got to put in that work. The hardest part for me, after failing many exams, and I failed many exams at OU in life, I got what we call test-taking anxiety. And I didn't know this, but even going back to high school, when I took the SAT and the ACT, the reason why I didn't do well on those two exams was because my mama did not know or teach me, Henry, you're going to have to pay $1,000 for Kaplan. Kaplan's a company that teaches white kids how to study and pass the white SAT, the white ACT, the white GRE, the white MCAT, the white LSAT, whatever the damn exam is. This mega company pays or charges white people lots of money for them to pass that test. And guess what? They pass. Here's the problem for you. Mama had the money. So I'm under crap. And that's the difference between an A+ student and a C student. A+ student, they got the money. A C student don't. A+ student got the money, but they're also doing what I'm telling you about in the first 20 minutes of this blog. They got networks. They got fraternities that have access to test banks. The previous frat brother has been in that class you're taking. So when you go to college, you still can drink beer and party because you're going to get the exam questions and still pass. You're going to party, drink, and still make an A. Not a black kid. You're going to party, drink, go out, have girls, have sex, still make an A. Still get that job because your daddy owns the company. Not a black kid. Now, what I'm saying is going to get a lot of my white people mad, but they know I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. So as I get back to my own experience, so what ends up happening was I said, okay, I'm going to read the appendix and I'm going to start just really looking at the appendix. So what I did was, as I am grateful I finally do, was I started looking at the appendix. Guess what happened? I found out that the appendix explains stuff in ways that the table of contents and the chapters don't explain. What the appendix does, it adds to the chapters. So guess what that means? Oh Lord, that means time. But here's what I didn't do. This is what I didn't do, and I'm going to give you this secret. I didn't read the chapters first. I read them last. What I did first was I go to the appendix. I memorized the table of contents. Like I memorized, okay, we're going to study domain 1, 2, threats, vulnerabilities, mitigations, security architecture, security operations, security program management oversight. Here was the stupid game, how they lied to you and you're not even picking it up. The test, they say, okay, the test gonna be 90 minutes. You're gonna have 20% or 12% of domain 1,
22% of domain 2, 18% of domain 3, 28% of domain 4, and 20% of domain 5, for a total of 100%. Okay, what does that mean? Here's what it means. You must know 100% of domain 1, 100% of domain 2, 100% of domain 3, 100% of domain 4, and 100% of domain 5. So you must know 500%, or if there's 5 domains, you must know or need to know 100% of all 5 domains, because they're going to pick certain questions from each domain, and each domain is not equal. But if you don't know the whole 100% of all the domains, you won't be able to figure out which question they pick on the exam. So that takes time. Well, how did I figure out how to do this? Well, what I did was, first I go through the domains. I go to understanding the breakdowns. They have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and that's the process of these textbooks. There's a domain number, then there's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Sometimes there's 1.1, 1.2, 1.1.1. So sometimes it drops down in multiple levels of sublevels of sublevels. You got to know that. I didn't understand that. But here's how I figured out how to go back and kind of get an understanding of what I need to know. And it was learning how the writers create the test questions. And what I found out was, when I looked at a chapter, and I highlighted what I was highlighting, I was picking all the wrong things to highlight. I was picking what I thought was interesting. It wasn't even a test question. So then I get on exam day and I take the test, and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't remember seeing that in the book. Because what I was thinking was important wasn't what they thought was important. So after I kind of, angered myself making so many mistakes and just getting really frustrated, I said, here's what I'm going to start doing. First off, go to the appendix. I'm going to then make sure I understand what the appendix design was. Now, this was back in the day when we had big old 50-pound books. Today, we don't have that. We have PDFs. We got PDFs. But back in those days, we had 50-pound books. And in the 50-pound books, it's a lot to carry. And you got 5 classes. You got, each book is 50 pounds. You got 3 classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. 2 classes on Tuesday, Thursday. You 5 miles away, and you got to catch the bus to school. And you don't have money to drive your car, so you can't park in the parking lot and stay late to 2 a.m. in the morning because you don't have the gas to drive your car 5 miles, because you're making $6.21 an hour, and you are a work study student working your little 15 hours a week for $6 an hour. Alexa, what's 6 times 15?
6 times 15 is 90.
So you're making $90 a week. 6 times 15 is $90. So you're making $90 a week, okay? And of course you got to pay taxes on that. Yeah, FICA and all that. So, okay. But remember, you work study. And there's no such thing as tax-free. And so the nightmare for me was, and is, and still will be, was the fact that I didn't know these things way back in 2004 all the way to 2011. I started learning this really after 2011. So now that I'm wanting to go back to school, the information that I can tell you now is very important. The problem is, of course, you got time against you. And you're in college, you don't have time to spend, 1 month on one class. You're taking 5 classes, and you are taking them in 3 months. So this is Pastor Tyrone from the Full, member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, member of Delta Sigma Pi Fraternity Incorporated, and a University of Oklahoma graduate. Finally, praise the Lord. and a long-term, lifelong student, making a blog and video about his experience about college and some secrets for all of my Phi Beta Sigma brothers that I will meet that'll be starting school coming up in the next few months. We're now June 26th. In 2 months, they'll be in school. August 26th, school is in session. We're back to starting over. So, as you go through and you learn those, as I said, the domains, you gotta learn the vocabulary words. You gotta spend time understanding vocabulary words, and this takes time. So you know what I ended up doing, as I kind of figured out the hard way, was I started recording myself making videos, like I'm doing right now. I would sit back and I would record myself making videos. So as I'm right now studying for cybersecurity/security, I realized that I have to learn certain words, certain terms, certain concepts, definitions, terms. You can't be in my world or in your world in a class and not know the definition terms. You gotta talk the lingo. You got to be able to say, hey, I am a IT, here's the lingo. So when I walk into a room and I'm having a conversation with somebody, if I can't talk that lingo, I'm not getting that job, right? So then after that comes in of course, the definitions, terms, concepts, domain, but still at the same time, keep your mind like, okay, this is domain 1, or chapter 1, this is chapter 10, or domain 10, or this is chapter 15, or domain 15. You'll notice that most textbooks are set up where they're going to be 15 chapters long for each week of the semester. This is on purpose. So the first exam will be the first 5 chapters, the second exam will be the next 5 chapters, and the final exam will be the last 5 chapters plus the information from the first 2 exams. And that is the process of college. Well, guess what? In real life, thank you, Lord, you don't have it that bad. Once you pass undergrad, the stress of undergrad is a little bit easier. Now you're taking a course called a boot camp, and they cost $5,000 per class. When you're in college, you're taking the same class, and it's costing $5,000 as well. But the difference is you got that times 5. So 5 times 5 is what? $25,000. Well, that's how much it costs per year for a lot of colleges. The difference in the regular world, after you graduate, you're just taking one class, but it's the same price, the same process. So after you go and start learning, and that's what I'm working on now, and that's the learning these terms, you got the hardware list. In my situation, we'll use security as an example. You gotta learn what an IDS is versus an IPS. You gotta learn what a wireless access point is, what a DNS server is. You gotta learn what Windows operating system versus Linux operating system versus Kali Linux operating system. You gotta learn about packet capture software. How do I get packets? Wireshark. Pen testing software that's inside of Kali Linux. Static analysis versus dynamic analysis programs. Vulnerability scanner programs. Emulator programs. Sample code. A code editor. Learning how to edit code. SIEM. Right? A SIEM stands for, a security event manager. And it's an event manager that basically tracks different events that you have on your network so that you can catch when something's about to attack. A lot different from our voice world where, we're doing telephones and putting phones in networks. It's completely different. I mean, but it's good because, voice unfortunately is a dying team, a dying architect, and I can't let myself die with it. Then we get into other definitions. So then after that, you learn those terms, right? The next thing, and this is where it really comes in, is learning the quote-unquote rules of the chapter. So as I open up my book here, I'm taking Security Plus. um, in our world, after you graduate from college, and while you're in college, what you're going to hear me discuss is that what it's like after college, and then what you're going through in college. So all my frat brothers out there, all my sorors out there, black folks out there, those people out there that are really trying to be the best they can be at school. If you're a white PWI, my heart breaks for you because I know what you're going through. If you're at a HBCU, thank God you have a little bit more help. White people are going to really work with you. They're going to really, black folks, I said white people. Black people going to really work with you if you're at a good HBCU. But here's the problem. That ain't the real world. So even though you might graduate from a quote-unquote HBCU, remember, you're coming back to that white world. And when you get into the real white world, they don't give a FCK about you. You got to put up and show up. And you got to know your knowledge. So then we get what's called CompTIA. Most companies, most classes that we call slides. The slides are worthless at the beginning. And this is where a lot of us got trapped. I got trapped. And this is how a lot of us get trapped. We sit in a room and we're watching them do a presentation. And they got the same prez they've been doing for 20 times before. You're just a class. You're just a number. You don't know that though. You think, well, hey man, they're talking to me. So what I would do was I would spend time recording the class. And so I would be sitting there not really studying outside of class. I just come into class and I record what they are saying. Well, guess what? That ain't nothing. To pass an exam ain't about listening to the man teach or woman teach. Pass an exam is about getting that appendix A, appendix B, appendix C, D, E, F, G, understanding all the table of contents, the domains, the glossary at the very back of the book that matches the chapter. And what you have to do is you have to go, when you're reading chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you go on chapter 1, glossary. Chapter 1, definitions, terms, glossary. Memorizing those words in that chapter 1, understanding those things verbatim. That takes time for me. So it took me sometimes a week to learn one chapter. Well, that's possible when you're in college. That's what I'm saying. A lot of what I'm about to tell you is going to be really hard because, like I said, you're learning all this stuff at a fast pace. You're learning 5 classes at a doggone fire hose pace, but you don't know that unless you got brothers like me helping you in the summer, getting your mind right, get your mental right to start saying, hell, okay, while it's the summer, I gotta start prepping now. So this blog really is about teaching a brother or sister to prep, so when they walk into college or after they can graduate. And this repetitive cycle is done for 4 years to 5 years. 2 to 3 semesters per year for 5 years. I went to school for 5 years, 3 semesters a year. Fall, spring, summer. 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 So think about that. 5 years, full 5 years. No summer break. No taking a little break. No, well, I'm going to go visit, go overseas. No. It was, I'm in school during the summer A, summer B, fall, spring. And sometimes you have a winter, 3-week winter class. I took a couple of winter classes that were 3 weeks long. So in essence, they give you a full 16-week class in 3 weeks. Yeah. I got a lot of my A's doing that too because it's like I said, it's the same way I'm experiencing now as I'm out of school, been out of school for now almost 20 years from my undergrad. I graduated from OU in 2009. It's 2029 coming up in about 5 years. And I'm still, studying. I'm still in school. And when I went to school in 2004 to 2009, I had been out of school before that for 9 years. So as a guy who's supposed to be a 1997 undergrad, I should be done with my doctorate degree. Well, I'm not. So the lesson I can bless you with is, hey man, if your life goes the way mine went, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself down. Things happen. You just got to keep on fighting. You understand? So, the next parts, after we do that, then what we get into is to practice questions. After you do that, glossary, after you do the quote-unquote the memorization of the definitions of each term, they, as I said earlier, they have test questions on the different domains. You memorize the questions, and this is what a guy taught me that slapped me in the face. I didn't realize this and I'm gonna do this now. He didn't explain to me this until after I graduated. Your brain has the ability to remember, but it doesn't remember long term. It takes a time from going from short term to long term. Short term is you can remember for 10 minutes. Long term you can remember for 10 years. Unless you get dementia or something like that, God willing. But I found that it took a while before my brain would move things from the short-term memory to long-term memory. For example, I said, what's a DLP? Right? In security, a DLP is a data loss prevention system. But the first time I had to memorize what a DLP was, I could. In my world, everything is acronyms: 3-letter, 4-letter, 5-letter, 4-letter, 6-letter, 8-letter, 10-letter, 4-letter. And these 4-letter acronyms will stand for a long 25-character word. It's plural. DMARC, domain-based message authentication reporting conformance, right? It took me a long time to understand what a DMARC was on an email header. But you know how I did it? As I made this blog, I made a blog. I went through all the terms. I would sit in my car. I would play it and replay it and replay it and replay it. And unfortunately, I had to drive a long way, an hour, from one place to another on the road. So guess what? That's an hour of using my wonderful iPhone voice memo. The new device compared to back in the day where I had the cassettes, the micro cassettes. Oh man, from Radio Shack. Shout out to Radio Shack. And so now, as I sit back and I'm at my age of 49, I'm like, shoot, God willing, man, with health and divine health, I can continue studying. Because to me, it's like finally I understand how to learn to learn. So then what I do is we go through the test questions, and as a guy showed me something, he said go over like 10 questions. Read the question, read the answer. Read the question, read the answer. Then take 1 minute and go to the next question. Do that for 10 questions. Then stop. Then go back and test yourself. So you're looking at it, you're memorizing it, but you're retesting. That repetition is the key word of everything I'm saying. Repetition, that's the key. The problem is if you're under time constraints, you don't have that time. And that was the nightmare that I could say I had to learn the hard way. Because in college, you and I, we were under time constraints. I had no mom. My mom was gone. No family. I'm on my own. I'm going to college. I'm borrowing money. You got to be in school. You can't drop out. Once you drop out, you go right into default on your loan. You got to pass the class with at least a 2.0. You want a 4.0, but that's impossible because I didn't know these secrets. And then, and so getting a 2.0 was hard because I was doing everything so hard. I heard someone say a long time ago, study smart, not harder. I was the dude. Let me give you some other secret stories, but I was a dude that back in the day there was a class called Where There's a Will, There's an A. Where there's a will, there's an A+. And they made millions of dollars off of us buying the class, and it was basically a white person selling to white kids how you can make an A in high school and in college and on. Now they didn't say in that class, it were cassette tapes back in those days. You got to do test banks. You got to learn glossary. You got to learn appendixes. You got to read the appendixes. So guess what? I never got an A. I didn't really learn how to get A's until I started doing these techniques. So now I'm about to go do that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to upload this. This is a blog, and I'm going to make more videos for my training. But this is just a video that I decided to make because I got a friend of mine that's getting ready to take an exam, and she's in her mid-50s, and she's studying for a cert, and it's the same way as college. And she's got 3 degrees, and she has been in college a lot more than I have. Has an MBA, but just because we got a class, because we passed college, don't mean we stay have the same brain. I think dementia and losing of our memory comes from, I really believe it comes from not using our mind, not learning new stuff, not studying, not using that brain. It's almost like you use the brain at 18 to 21. You start a job at 21, you work to 65, and between 21 and 65, you don't really use your brain no more. Then you get to be 65, and you ain't been using your brain. So what happens? Dementia, the loss of memory. I've seen so many people online. There's been, for example, I just heard of Bruce Willis having dementia. Bruce Willis, having dementia. Michael Irvin's wife has been labeled as having dementia, which is dementia, which is basically memory loss. You're losing your brain, you're losing your neurons, which is a tragic way to die. It's like going from a baby to an adult back to a baby. And I just speak in authority of Yahshua's name, that ain't the will of God. My grandfather lived to be 103 years old and had his mind all the way till he died. I would sit there and have conversations with him. He was very quiet. You ask him a question, he'll give you an hour answer. And I listened. And from when I met him, when I reconnected with him at age 97, 96, all the way till he passed at 103. And I wasn't expected to, because my grandfather was 60 when I was born. My mother died when I was 25. When my mother died, my grandmother died a year before my mother, so I thought my granddad's going to die pretty soon too. So I expected in 2001 to lose my grandmother, my grandfather, and my mother. So after that, these last 25 years have been really lonely, because I would have had no grandparents. My mom's side, my grandmother was a maid, and she did not read, and she did not write, and she did not go to college. So for her mind was never maximized, because she never went to school to get educated like my other family was did. So I say all that to say this. That's all. It takes time. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. And there are many other sub-secrets within the study world. The good news is there are different classes you can get online on YouTube. Go look up. And I should make this into a channel, but I'll put this on my Sigma channel. I'll add this to my Sigma channel. But there's classes, there are ways where you can be able to learn the new ways. Kinesthetic learner, visual learner, auditory learner. There's different learning styles. You got to learn your learning style. Some people have a photographic memory. They can see something and they got it. I don't have that. I can look at a book for 10 hours and I see the book. I know I've studied, I've looked at it, I saw it. I know I saw it. Go to a test on the 11th hour and I don't remember the book. But then if I hear it over and over again, and I hear someone say it, I can instantly recall it. And how I learned this was I was in the church. I didn't realize this, but that Lord is showing me this as I'm talking about it. In the church, we have what's called call and response. And the Bible and the pastor would say, okay, Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. And he'll start reading the first part of the verse. Instantly, I would know the remaining part. I ain't heard that. I haven't studied that thing in 8-9 years. But because he gave me the first couple of words in the sentence, my brain it went right to that word. It saw the verse. It saw the word. It remembered. So my memory is connected to my ears, my hearing. Well, the Bible says faith cometh by hearing, right? I think learning comes by hearing too, for me. I learn from hearing. If I can hear it over and over and over and over and over, I'm going to be able to play it back and it's going to come back to me. So that's why when I do my exam practice and my test practice, I record myself and I listen to myself on the recording over and over and over. And guess what? It's the same technique I learned when I met my church. I hope these are lessons that can bless you, brothers. I hope you are blessed, and I hope that as you start fall 24, spring 25, fall 25, spring 26, fall 26, spring 27, fall 28, fall 27, spring 28, fall 28, spring 29. As I look forward to reaching my 20th year being a graduate of University of Oklahoma, as I work into my next degree, being another graduate. I hope these life lessons can bless you. This is Henry HHOWEY Jr., member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Sigma Pi Fraternity Incorporated, Prince Al Mason, most often an African man, just humbly telling you his story of how he's overcome obstacles and may this bless you in your life. Let's go. Hallelujah. Amen. Amen.